Thank you so much for having me here. Finally, I got the opportunity to talk after having everyone from the world talk on the stage. Okay, so let's start. I believe we all have amazing stories to share, but most of us stop writing our stories midway. When the going gets tough, when we need to sacrifice one more comfort, when the dreams are not picture perfect anymore, that's when we stop writing our stories. But that's where the real stories begin. So I was in the Indian Coast Guard from 2011 to 2019 for good about 8 years, and I loved my job. And despite all that, I always had that something extra on my plate. Be it participating in Mrs. India Queen of Substance 2018, or probably making itineraries which I couldn't undertake that time, but eventually I did. Or maybe writing beyond the duty hours. So there was always something extra on my plate. People would call me restless, dominating, someone who needed a spotlight. So when opportunities would come in, everyone would question, what do we get in return? What will we get out of it? But I was very foolish in my own way. I never asked such questions. I was a yes baby. Oh yes sir, I will do it. Don't worry, I'm there. I will do it. So eventually what happened, that became my biggest asset. When I became an author, when I became an entrepreneur, when I had startups. So that was the biggest asset which I made with the Coast Guard. So 2019 I retired, and 2020 I decided to take a plunge of going the unconventional way, where there's no 9 to 5, there's no proper job, I don't have an office, I can work from wherever I want. I wanted to create an impact, take care of my baby. So 2020, I took the plunge. Now everyone talks about take the plunge, good you're taking the plunge, but no one talks what happens when you take the plunge. So this brings me to my pointers. Slide please. Before this one. Back. Yes. The illusion of freedom. So freedom is a very messy term. It's a very unpredictable term. So back in Coast Guard, I had a 9 to 5 job. I had discipline, integrity, people to tackle, a lot of duties. Work was given to me. There was something called freedom, but work was given to me. Now after Coast Guard, I remember sitting on my sofa, and there was a laptop open, there was a blank document, a blinking cursor, and I'm staring at that laptop and I'm waiting for someone to give me my work. And I had no one around. So basically, I did not have a to-do list, because now I had chosen something which is unconventional. I will go my way or the highway. So that freedom was terrifying. It was scary, because you had to generate your own work. And I remember a friend of mine, she called me and she said, okay, so congratulations, you have completed 8 years in the service, now what? And I said, I'm just figuring out. Just give me some time. And the silence on the other side was much heavier than words. And that's the time I realized that applause will fade, but ultimately you are left with your own choices. That comes to my second point, the sacrifices you don't see. The next slide. Yes, the sacrifices you don't see. So freedom asks for certain payments. It can be comfort, stability, predictability, at times relationships. And the currency it looks for is nights of self-doubt, rejections, uncertainty, or maybe no recognition. That's what happens in the process of freedom. So I remember we had this funding from Startup India, about few lakhs, for my first startup. And we had this amazing event planned up on a Sunday morning for 11 a.m. We were expecting about 500 plus ladies who were my customer segment. And we had the food boxes, we had the presentation, everything was set. 12 p.m., not a single person came for that event. Not a single person. Just imagine you go to a wedding and you see the bride and the groom and there's no one else. How would it feel? That's what I felt that day. To cope up with that, you need a lot of strength. You need a lot of courage. Because your employees are looking at you. And still you have to have a smiling face and say, oh, it's all right, this happens in startups. And the next day again, when you have been crying all night, the next day again you have to go back with a smile and say, oh, please, continue your hard work. We are going to be a billion-dollar company one day. So that's what it teaches you. It teaches you courage, the sacrifices. And that's when I realized that freedom is a long tunnel where you may have light or no light at the end. Coming to my third point, confronting fear, self-doubt, and society. So now, one side, my first startup is crumbling, brick by brick, but I'm very restless. So I wanted my second startup. And over here, my second startup is growing. And I remember a friend of mine, she came again and she said, your first startup is crumbling, right? What will you do with your second startup? And I was all flamboyant. Oh, don't worry. I'm too good, Don't worry. Everything is catered for. And that night, again, I could not sleep because there was so much of self-doubt, so much of anxiety, so much of depression, like what if this fails too? So that is what freedom teaches you. And I also remember when it comes to the society, one slide at the back please. Yeah, when it comes to the society, I'm sure there are a lot of content creators here. So when it comes to society, they will say, come on, yes, you can do it. Oh, you're doing a fabulous job. And they never understand your work. Because you yourself are figuring out your work. You don't know what is your to-do list. You don't know what you have to do, in a day. Your goal is there, but you have to generate your own to-do list. And that is the time when society never understands exactly what are you up to. So looking for validation, recognition in that process, there's no point. Because you may get validation or you may not get validation at all till the end. So that, coming to the next slide please. This I have put it just as it is because I cannot shuffle the words of what I want to say about freedom. The more you honor your path, the less borrowed your life becomes. And the more freer you truly feel. So now when all these things, they came up together, they gave me a gift of life, which was writing impactful biographies for individuals and corporates. And I get to meet such impactful people who have not stopped writing their stories in life. Coming to the next slide. The hidden rewards. Now we have talked about the bad parts, right? But freedom has few hidden rewards as well. So when I go back to my second startup, which is a play area in Calcutta, and I see moms sitting on the workstations and their kids are playing behind with my staff, I feel very proud of myself. I do get messages from parents saying, oh, you've done a good job, but that is a kind of self-validation towards me when I think, oh my God, I have solved a problem where mothers can peacefully work when their kids are being taken care of, because that was one thing which I never had during my first startup. And when it comes to the second reward, I remember 7 lakh was the grant we got for my first startup. So most of the people would come and say, 7 lakh, it's not a big amount, right? I said, will you give me 7 lakhs? They said, depends upon the pitch. I said, exactly, that's what I've done. I have pitched to investors, and those investors have given me the money with a certain equity because they have believed in my idea, they have believed in my vision, they have believed in my mission, and that's what makes me a real entrepreneur. That's why I validate myself. And when it comes to my first book launch, I remember, though I have written 4 books, but the first book launch was very special. And you know what my first book launch was like? It was a message, WhatsApp. Your book is live, and the links that you can buy from these links. And after 15 days, I get a message from a 21-year-old. And she says that, you know what, Vama, your book has changed my perspective towards life. And that was a reward which always I remember for my first book. So these are the certain rewards which you get eventually during the journey, and it makes you forget all the self-doubt, the non-recognitions, the non-validations you have seen in your entire journey. The next slide, please. Okay, before we come to this, so that is the cost which I have paid for my freedom, a life which is completely, unapologetically, boldly mine. I have learned from my mistakes, I have risen from my mistakes, and I have learned the hard way in the more experiential manner. So that is what freedom looks like. Now, so all those people who do not get opportunities, please sit with yourself for at least 30 minutes in a day and self-reflect, self-introspect exactly what you want in your life, what do you want to do in your life. If you still are not able to find the answer, no problems. Start working on yourself, your mindset, your body, your personality, and automatically when you start changing, the world around you starts changing, and that's how you start getting more opportunities. And for people who get a lot of opportunities, I have used 3 tools all my life, which I would like to share with you. The tool 1 is, as you can see, I call this an opportunity matrix. First is prioritize. Okay, if you feel that there is some opportunity which gives you high energy, high value, please put it on the prioritize list, and you have to give 100% focus to it. For example, that's my business plan. In the second one, when you talk about assigning something, for example, you don't want to do some work, but you feel that it's important, what do? You assign it, you delegate it to people. Third one, remove toxic people, of course. They are my specialty. I don't like toxic people, so I remove them from my grid all the time. And the fourth one is protect, something which is giving you energy, giving you value, like your gymming or maybe your meditation. You have to protect it with all your heart. Coming to my tool 2, the next slide please. The yes rule. So as I said, I was always a yes baby. At least till your 30s, do not overanalyze any kind of opportunity. All you have to do is say a yes, because that will build your skills, that will build your confidence. And coming to my third rule, the extra 20%, that's what has built me. Now imagine you have a social life, a professional life, a personal life, a financial life, a soulful life. So what is that area where you have to make a difference? And then you give extra 20% to that area, and you will track that it will automatically enhance your skills, your confidence, and you will become a better person altogether. The next slide, please. Dreamers are not born with stories. They create them brick by brick. So if you feel that you have the audacity, the courage to fly high, then pay the cost and touch the sky with glory. Thank you.